The transmission came through every satellite network, hijacking feeds from Buenos Aires to Tokyo, from the salt flats of Utah to the neon towers of New Seoul. It was sudden, uninvited, and impossible to ignore. A figure, tall and bathed in dark violet light, stood encased in gold-trimmed armor, eyes glowing like twin suns. His voice echoed across languages, translated instantly by the tech no one on Earth recognized. "People of Earth," the figure began, "you now kneel before the Zorthian Empire. Resistance is death. Compliance earns you survival. You have one planetary cycle to submit or face extinction." The silence afterward was suffocating. Newscasters didn't blink. Social media went dark for 0.8 seconds. A record. Then, almost as if choreographed by the entire species' collective insanity, humanity responded in the only way it could. It laughed. Loud, mocking, uncontrolled, from living rooms to classrooms, military bunkers to late-night talk shows, the world exploded in laughter. Memes flooded the net. TikToks popped up with skits reenacting the speech, complete with tinfoil helmets and over-the-top monologues. Someone even uploaded a remix of the aliens' message set to dubstep, titled "Bow to Who?" It hit 100 million views in 3 hours. At first, most assumed it was a prank, some viral marketing campaign. But when Earth's governments scrambled jets in response to real, tangible, and hostile crafts breaching orbit, and when 3 satellites vanished without explanation, the laughter only grew louder. Because fear had long since been replaced by something else in the 21st century Earthling, sarcasm, weaponized by trauma. In Washington, a joint military council convened. General Trask, a thick-jawed, steel-eyed veteran of the Eurasian conflicts, lit a cigar in the no-smoking zone and barked to no one in particular. "They threatened us mid-inflation, post-pandemic, and while the planet's on fire, hell, they're late to the party." In Moscow, Defense Commander Artonov muttered dryly, "They want submission? They'll get Slavic hospitality." The Zorthians had conquered 817 planetary systems without a single significant loss. Their empire spanned centuries and star clusters. They expected Earth to fall like all the others, trembling, compliant, begging for mercy. Instead, they intercepted a broadcast. From Earth. Live. Global viewership, 4.6 billion. It featured a man in a bathrobe, holding a cup of coffee, speaking from what looked like a rundown kitchen. He stared dead into the camera and said, "So, thanks for the intergalactic death threat. Super terrifying. But I haven't even paid off my student loans yet, so come back when I'm more emotionally available." The broadcast cut to canned laughter and a jingle. The Empire's command vessel, Vorkal, hovered in low orbit, watching. The High Inquisitor Zvailon, a being who'd once vaporized an entire moon for disobedience, turned to his second-in-command and whispered, "What is wrong with this species?" That night, the Empire issued a second message, furious, promising planetary annihilation at dawn. Earth responded with a live comedy roast titled "Alien Karen Wants Our Planet," hosted by 4 stand-up comedians who pulled 0 punches and went viral instantly. And still, the Zorthians didn't understand. Their scans confirmed the presence of nuclear arsenals, kinetic satellites, AI warfare protocols, yes, but psychologically? Behaviorally? They had expected submission. Instead, they had triggered Earth's most dangerous evolutionary trait: humor under pressure. The Zorthians prepared their assault with the precision of a millennia-old military machine. A fleet of 33 assault carriers, each the size of Manhattan, aligned into formation above Earth's equator. Orbital cannons calibrated, nanite swarms were primed, and disintegration beams were warmed to full charge. In any other system, This display would have triggered immediate capitulation. But Earth didn't blink. If anything, it got worse. From Johannesburg to Jacksonville, the people of Earth organized impromptu alien invasion viewing parties. Giant screens went up in the streets, complete with popcorn stands and taco trucks. Some called it the end of the world. Most called it Friday night. A live stream titled "Zorthians Be Trippin" became the #1 trending stream in less than an hour. A Texas-based rancher named Buck, shirtless, chewing tobacco, stood in front of a corroded pickup with a shotgun across his shoulder and declared, "Let me see one of them alien bastards land here. I got a welcome party they ain't ready for." The clip was looped over 10 million times. Even China's Ministry of Defense quietly retweeted it, with a laughing emoji. What the Zorthians had failed to calculate, what their AI simulations never accounted for, was Earth's abnormal social coping mechanism. Humor as psychological armor. Most species in the galaxy operated on strict emotional pathways. Fear suppressed logic. Panic increased compliance. But humans? They cracked jokes as cities burned. They roasted death itself. In the orbital war room of the Vorkal, High Inquisitor Zivalun stared at the latest intercepted Earth broadcast. It featured a bearded man in his 30s, broadcasting from what appeared to be his basement bunker. He looked straight into the camera and spoke in perfect galactic standard. Thanks to a translator app coded by some kid from Mumbai who thought it'd be funny. "Zorthians, my dudes, listen up. This is Earth. We've survived world wars, plagues, inflation, TikTok drama, and Nickelback. You think you scare us? Bruh, we had clowns eating children in sewers for fun." The Zorthian advisors began recalculating. "Are they mentally stable?" asked Commander Rilak, a 12-foot war beast wrapped in armor thick enough to stop solar flares. "No," Zavalon muttered. "Worse, they're emotionally detached and violently whimsical." Meanwhile, Earth's leadership held a meeting, but not in secret bunkers or shadowy boardrooms. No, they live-streamed it. The UN headquarters was turned into a circus of sarcasm and military logistics. Generals wore sunglasses indoors. Presidents wore hoodies. The entire room reeked of caffeine and dry humor. General Trask stood up during the live session. "We got threats, we got space laser eyes, and we got jokes. But here's the thing. The more they talk, the funnier this becomes. They don't understand us because they think fear equals surrender. They don't get that we've been born into chaos. We made memes out of global tragedies before breakfast." He pointed to a screen where some YouTuber was animating the Zorthian Emperor with googly eyes and fart noises. The room roared. And yet, beneath the sarcasm, the Earth militaries were working hard. Hidden under the veil of mockery, underground bunkers buzzed with AI-powered simulations. Quantum encryption locked in nuclear command codes. SpaceX, ESA, and several rogue launch networks aligned their satellite lasers under one backdoor protocol. Project Scorched Comedian. By the time the Zorthian fleet initiated their first strike, a strange silence fell across their command deck. Their solar cannon, a weapon capable of glassing entire continents, refused to lock on. Their radar screens flickered. Orbital telemetry jammed. Earth had hit back, without launching a single missile. They had hacked them, not through traditional means. Number Earth didn't send code. It sent content. Billions of Earth-based signals, memes, videos, JPEGs of cats with sunglasses bombarded the Zorthian data cores. Their ships ran on hyper-intelligent AI neural webs, and those webs were now flooded with TikTok. The Vorkal's lights dimmed as AI systems slowed. "We are under informational overload," shrieked the data technician. Zavalon clenched his fists. "What have they done?" On the ship's main monitor, a new Earth transmission began to play. It was a parody music video titled "Zorthians Ain't Got No Drip," featuring auto-tuned voices mocking their armor design and claiming the Empire used Wi-Fi slower than McDonald's. Some ships stalled in orbit. Back on Earth, deep beneath Colorado in NORAD, a grim-faced young lieutenant reported, "Sir, 19 of their 33 ships just dropped out of orbital sync. Systems are overwhelmed with Earth media garbage." "Define garbage," Trask barked. The lieutenant didn't even smirk. "Furries, ASMR mukbangs, a 5-hour loop of a cat slapping a baby." Trask lit another cigar. "Beautiful. Keep sending." The Zorthians finally retaliated. In frustration, they unleashed kinetic rods. Massive tungsten cylinders dropped from orbit with the destructive force of mini-nukes. 5 were launched. Earth countered with a unified missile defense net. US THAAD, Russian S-500, Israeli Arrow, and even Iran's rogue laser grid, all coordinated under an AI umbrella called Project Parity. Only one rod hit, a patch of forest in Canada. The only casualty was a squirrel, and it went viral. Within hours, the squirrel had a name, Commander Nutmeg, and a backstory. People edited his face onto war posters. Plush toys sold out by the millions. The Empire's attempted show of force became Earth's newest marketing opportunity. Zavalen paced in circles. "They think war is a performance." "No," replied his second-in-command grimly. "They've made it one." Desperate, the Empire sent ground forces. 3 transports landed in rural zones, 1 in Kansas, 1 in Australia's outback, and 1 in a Ukrainian village. All 3 were destroyed before footage could even be analyzed. In Kansas, a farmer used a tractor rigged with old fireworks and diesel fuel to set off an explosion that melted the dropship's hull. He was later recorded saying, "I thought it was a drone competition. Didn't know it was an alien." In Ukraine, the locals set up a table with vodka, salo, and beat the Zorthian patrol into retreat after mistaking them for unusually aggressive tourists. In Australia, a man named Darren punched a Zorthian in the throat and yelled, "Get off my damn lawn, you tin-faced kangaroo!" Every incident became a meme. Every loss was celebrated with beer and laughter. The final straw came when the Empire intercepted a global ad campaign by Nike. Just invade it, with a Zorthian soldier sprinting, terrified, from a mob of Earthlings carrying selfie sticks and Molotovs. Zavalen collapsed into his command throne. "They're not even fighting us seriously." "No, my lord," said the aide. "They're playing." That was when the Emperor himself contacted the Vorkal. His image appeared, holographic, towering, his voice like crushing stone. "Zavalen, report." The High Inquisitor kneeled. "My Emperor, Earth is broken. They laugh in war. They drown our AI with memes. They are unpredictable, unrelenting, and what? They are entertaining." The Emperor leaned forward. "Interesting. Perhaps they are not to be conquered." Zavalen dared to raise his head. "What shall we do, my lord?" There was a pause. Then came the command that would change galactic history forever. "Send an emissary." "Not a threat. A job offer. We need writers for our propaganda department." The emissary landed in Nevada. Not because Earth had designated a meeting zone there, but because the Zorthians' AI, now partly corrupted by Earth media, believed Area 51 to be a galactic embassy. No one corrected it. They were too busy watching a live stream of the descent, complete with dramatic music, commentary from retired sportscasters, and a holographic ticker at the bottom that read, "Breaking. Aliens come to Earth to hire comedians. Stand-up war now official." The ship that touched down was not one of war. It was a sleek diplomatic vessel, trimmed in gold with a hull that shimmered with celestial tech. But it carried a crew of only 3. Zorthian ambassador Volcra, his translator drone, and a humanoid communications interface, now running Earth-based humor plugins downloaded from Reddit threads and late-night show archives. They stepped out into a crowd of 400 humans wearing shirts that read, "I'd invade that," and "E.T., go home, unless you have a job offer." The crowd parted for a man in flip-flops and a Department of Defense badge, chewing gum and holding a slushie. He introduced himself without ceremony. "Mark, Earth's unofficial spokesperson. Also, I run a meme page. You here to surrender, hire someone, or file a complaint?" Volcra blinked. "We come in pursuit of cultural engagement." "Speak clearer, buddy. We're Earth. We do sarcasm, not subtlety." Volcra's translator buzzed. "Your world possesses a weapon more dangerous than lasers. Your culture, your irreverence, your narrative inversion, your refusal to obey emotional protocol. Our empire has realized you are uncolonizable. So now we seek an alliance." Of entertainment, Mark took a long slurp from his drink. "Let me get this straight. You came here to murder us, and now you want us to write your jokes?" "Yes," Volcra replied. "Why?" "Because we cannot stop watching your content. It has compromised the High Emperor's attention span. His Imperial fleet no longer trains. They binge Earth flicks and argue over sitcom endings." Mark blinked slowly. "So, let me summarize. You had a 1,000-year empire, undefeated in war, and Earth took you down with memes, trash reality TV, and rogue podcast bros?" Volcra didn't speak. He just nodded, defeated, and thus began what historians would later call the Age of Reverse Colonization. While governments debated what to do next, private companies pounced. Netflix offered the Zorthians a licensing deal. Elon Musk posted a meme of himself shaking hands with an alien and wrote, "I told y'all." Amazon began shipping Galactic Influencer starter kits. Within days, every Earth-based content farm had Zorthian outreach divisions. Even Taco Bell released a commercial welcoming their new space taco enthusiasts and offered the Zorthians a nacho truce. On Earth's side, no one believed peace had come. Not really. There was still a tension in the air, an unspoken understanding that all this absurdity balanced on a razor-thin edge. That if either side took things too seriously, the entire thing could collapse into bloodshed. But for now, humanity did what it did best. They monetized it. Volcra stayed in Los Angeles. Within a week, he had a verified Instagram account, was spotted at Coachella wearing sunglasses, even though his species saw via echolocation, and signed a 3-season deal for a sitcom titled Close Encounters of the Cringe Kind. But not everyone was amused. Deep in Earth's military shadows, General Trask watched from behind mirrored shades, arms crossed as he sat in a fortified surveillance room. "This piece smells like bait," he muttered. "Empires don't go soft overnight." The man sitting next to him was the director of Project Parody, a former stand-up comic turned psychological warfare expert. "They're not soft," he replied. "They're infected." "Infected?" "With Earth culture. They can't stop absorbing it. Our sarcasm isn't just annoying them, it's changing them." He pulled up a feed from inside the Vor call. Zorthian soldiers were holding skit contests. Imperial officers were remixing orders into auto-tune. One of the high commanders had started a vlog channel titled Warship Diaries, Crushing Stars and Making Friends. Trask stood up. "So you're saying we've launched a psychological pandemic?" "Worse," the director said. "We've made them, like us." "But liking us doesn't mean they won't turn on us." The director grinned. "Exactly why we keep feeding them our worst, our chaos, our contradictions, our unscripted reality. It keeps them confused, and confusion is security." Across the ocean, in Geneva, a coalition of psychologists, diplomats, and meme curators formed a new department. Cultural Containment Protocol, CCP. Their job was to regulate just how much Earth was leaked into the Empire. Too little, and the Zorthians might regain composure. Too much, and Earth might collapse under its own absurdity. Meanwhile, on Zorthia Prime, things were spiraling. The Emperor, once revered as the voice of cosmic order, had begun wearing hoodies. His speeches now included punchlines. He fired 3 governors for lacking vibe alignment. An ancient court ritual was interrupted when he paused to watch cat videos sent by Mark. Old Guard Zorthians, warrior priests and star generals started whispering of blasphemy, of rebellion. That's when the Emperor made his boldest move. He invited Earth to co-govern the Empire. The announcement caused the kind of chaos even Earth hadn't anticipated. Back on the Vorkal, Volkra watched the news from his temporary Earth-made studio apartment. It was cluttered with comic books, a lava lamp, and 2 rubber chickens, gifts from fans. He turned to his translator drone. "Begin transmission." "To whom?" it asked. "To Mark. I need Earth's most chaotic mind in the Emperor's court." Mark didn't hesitate. He didn't clear it with any government. He packed 3 hoodies, a Nintendo Switch, and a bag of flaming hot chips, then walked onto the diplomatic cruiser like he was boarding a budget flight to Vegas. When he landed on Zorthia Prime, the people, millions of years evolved, conditioned by rigidity and hierarchy, watched in confusion as this soft-bellied, gum-chewing human walked straight into the Imperial throne room. He bowed sarcastically. "Sup, your galacticness?" The Emperor looked down, half smiling. "I have decided to make you my Minister of Chaos." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Like, officially?" "Yes. You will be in charge of keeping our empire unpredictable, disobedient, and emotionally volatile. In short, human enough to avoid stagnation." Mark scratched his head. "You know I'm just a meme lord from Reno, right?" "Exactly," the Emperor said. "That's what makes you dangerous and necessary." Back on Earth, the world reacted with a mix of horror and pride. A man once banned from Facebook for excessive trolling was now part of the most powerful interstellar government in existence. General Trask sighed and muttered, "We're all gonna die." But the director of Project Parody simply smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe. We just won the weirdest war in history." Mark didn't fit in, and that's exactly why he worked. As Earth's newly minted Minister of Chaos, he now walked the golden halls of the Zorthian Imperial Palace in basketball shorts and a shirt that read, "I'm not lazy, I'm energy efficient." Zorthian elite looked on in horror. Generals whispered, nobles sneered, but no one dared challenge him. Not since the Emperor himself declared that Earth's unpredictability was now the cornerstone of the Empire's renewal strategy. Mark's first official act? He installed a suggestion box in the Emperor's throne room. On day 1, it was filled with jokes, insults, and a surprisingly detailed recipe for grilled cheese. By day 3, it became a source of news, ideas, and raw, unsanitized thoughts the Emperor had never heard before. Mark leaned into it. He held open mic nights in the war planning chamber. He replaced one of the grand strategy councils with a game of truth or dare. One Zorthian admiral admitted under pressure that he hadn't read the Empire's war doctrine in 300 years. Another dared to wear earth denim to a tribunal. But amidst the comedy and chaos, something far more dangerous began to brew. Not everyone in the galaxy welcomed Earth's influence. On the far edges of the Empire, a coalition of old-world systems, known as the Purity Arc, began to gather strength. They rejected Earth's culture as corrosive, spiritually invasive, and worst of all, fun. They started small, boycotting Earth broadcasts, banning Earth food exports. Mark nearly sparked a diplomatic incident when he realized he couldn't get hot sauce on Zorthia Prime. But it escalated quickly. Within weeks, military vessels began disappearing in those regions. Embassies burned. On the planet Volnash, an Earth cultural outpost was destroyed. The last broadcast captured a chilling phrase scrawled in glowing plasma across the walls. Order restored. Chaos rejected. Back in the palace, Mark stood before the Emperor, fidgeting. This wasn't a joke. Not this time. "They're not just mad," he said. "They're scared. We broke their script, and now they want to delete the play." The Emperor's eyes, once cold and calculating, now disturbingly amused, narrowed. "They wish to preserve tradition." Mark pointed at the burning outpost footage. "That's not tradition. That's extremism with good PR." The Emperor sighed and stood. He wore no armor now, just robes stitched with Earth streetwear logos. "Then it's time Earth learned that chaos too has its price." Earth was not ready. Sure, it had defied the Empire, mocked it, warred with it through memes and madness. But this was different. The Purity Arc didn't threaten. It acted. It didn't laugh. It purged. When their fleet emerged from the maw of Catherian, it wasn't for intimidation. It was for execution. 100 ships, all painted black, all silent. No warning, no speech. They cut through the Empire's outer rim like fire through parchment. At first, Earth assumed it was another joke, edited footage, a viral marketing scheme. Then came the broadcast. Only this time it wasn't in Earth language, it was in Zorthian war script, a dialect older than memory. The Empire translated it. One sentence. "The infection ends now." General Trask, still watching from NORAD, slammed his fist on the table. "I told you. I told all of you this was coming." The director of Project Parody sat across from him, chewing sunflower seeds. "Yeah, but did you think it'd come with branding?" Trask glared. "This isn't a meme war. This is scorched space." Project Parody began scrambling. They launched Operation Comedy Shield, injecting billions of Terran signals into satellite networks, aiming to confuse, distract, and delay the approaching fleet. But the Purity Arc had learned. They had firewalled their ships, severed all cultural links. No memes penetrated, no jokes diffused. Earth's greatest weapon, its absurdity, bounced off like pebbles on steel. Mark, summoned back to Earth's Emergency Command Council, stared at the data feeds in disbelief. "We finally meet a species that laughed at annihilation, and now we've got a faction that doesn't even smirk." He looked around the war room. "All right, then we go old school." Operation Mock and Load began at dawn. It wasn't conventional. It wasn't even logical. It was Earth at its most dangerous, desperate, unpredictable, and inappropriately enthusiastic. They deployed hologram fleets that played reruns of sitcoms during battles. They installed laugh track generators in orbital drones. They beamed 24/7 prank footage onto enemy ships, somehow reprogramming Zorthian hulls to emit fart noises on proximity alarms. And it worked. For a little while. The Purity Arc's front-line ships began malfunctioning, not from the tech, but from the crew. Soldiers broke down from sensory overload. Their mental conditioning failed under sustained exposure to human nonsense. But then, the fleet adapted. They sent drones, automated systems, no crew, no emotion, no weak spots. They cut through the Empire's defenses with surgical coldness, erasing every trace of Earth's cultural imprints as they advanced. By the end of the third day, 7 planets had gone dark. 2 Terran colonies were lost. And Earth began to understand what it truly meant to be taken seriously. Mark sat alone in what had once been the throne room of the Vor Kal, now restructured into Earth's Interstellar Culture HQ. He stared at the last message from the Emperor. Chaos was the cure, but now the patient is immune. You must escalate. Below the message was a single phrase. Unleash the archives. Mark hesitated. The archives were forbidden content. The darkest humor Earth had ever produced. Banned skits, satirical warfare, unfiltered social experiments, psychological warfare crafted not for laughs, but for collapse. There were reasons they'd been locked away. They weren't just edgy, they were unhinged. "Are we really going to do this?" he whispered. Behind him, a voice replied. "We already did, the moment we made them laugh." It was the director of Project Parody. He handed Mark a drive. Inside this, the worst of humanity, the raw stuff, the truth wrapped in madness. Mark stared at it. "We're about to fight monsters with monsters." "Exactly," the director said. "Time to see if hell really has a sense of humor." The drive was called Black Vault, Laughter That Bled. Mark held it in his hand like it was radioactive. Because, in a way, it was. This wasn't the light-hearted meme barrage that had turned the Empire sideways. This was the archival content created during Earth's most unstable decades, the uncensored psychological barrage tested in Cold War black sites, dystopian social labs, and canceled late-night shows too dangerous for syndication. Humanity's unfiltered mirror. He stood inside Earth's Interstellar Signal Command, a bunker buried beneath Reykjavik, designed to survive a planet-wide EMP and still broadcast cat videos. The screens around him flickered with warnings. Every official in the room had signed off on this operation, even though their faces betrayed silent doubt. Mark glanced at the director of Project Parody. "You're sure this won't break us instead?" The director's face was pale, his usual smug calm replaced with something grimmer. "It's a 50-50, but we've got no other cards left." The Purity Arc's fleet was now 30 hours from Earth's atmosphere. The Empire's loyalist systems were overwhelmed or burning. The Zorthian Emperor himself had vanished. Rumors said he'd exiled himself after refusing to launch a counter-offensive that would have killed billions. Mark sighed. "Right. Then we go full nuclear. Emotionally." He inserted the drive and unleashed Earth's final defense, weaponized honesty. The first signal wasn't a missile. It was a video. Raw, handheld footage of a man breaking down in his kitchen at 2:34 a.m., confessing he couldn't afford diapers for his child. The sound wasn't edited. The lighting was awful. His tears were real. The next broadcast showed a street brawl between ex-friends over stolen rent money. Shaky cam, screaming, unresolved pain. Then came grainy therapy session tapes, stand-up comedians confessing they wanted to die between punchlines. Reality shows that were never aired because contestants turned violent and unpredictable. The Purity Arc's drones intercepted the signals. Their AI filtered it. At first, they dismissed it as noise. Then the soldiers began to break. Because this wasn't war. This was emotional truth without anesthesia. Across enemy command ships, strange things happened. One commander fell to his knees, whispering that he'd seen his own mother's eyes in a woman on screen. Another smashed his console, screaming for silence. In less than 4 hours, the front line had turned into a graveyard of crippled minds. And still, the signals came. Earth unleashed comedy shows where the audience didn't laugh. Sketches that ended with silence and stares. Songs sung by the homeless. Game shows where contestants broke down because winning felt hollow. One fleet attempted to retreat. Their ship lost control mid-jump. When it reappeared near Neptune, its entire AI core was fried. The official Earth report said, "Emotionally induced logic loop failure." Translated, they couldn't process being human. But Earth paid a price. The broadcasts didn't just hit the enemy, They leaked everywhere, into civilian networks, into children's feeds, into soldiers' helmets, into homes. The same drive that broke the enemy started cracking Earth, too. In Tokyo, a riot broke out after a school mistakenly played a video titled, "Why Hope is a Lie" in a virtual history class. In New York, a mass silent protest formed outside UNHQ. No chants, just thousands holding signs with existential dread quotes. Mark watched from the bunker, shaking. "We're nuking our own minds." The director didn't look up. "We told the truth too hard." "Shut it down," Mark snapped. "Number, we're too close." He pointed at the enemy fleet data. 70% offline. 15% paralyzed. The last remnants, elite dreadnoughts, still pushed forward but slower, as if they feared what came next. Mark gritted his teeth. "Then aim it. Aim the last one." The director nodded. "There's only one file left. We saved it." He inserted the final clip. It was 5 minutes long, black and white, no cuts, just a single father sitting on the edge of a hospital bed, holding his daughter's shoes. No music, just breathe. A monologue, unrehearsed, unraveling. "I told her the world would get better, that the pain stops, that people care. I lied, not because I'm cruel, because I'm her dad, because she needed something I didn't have. Hope. It's not always honest, but it's all I could give." The video ended. Within 20 seconds, the dreadnoughts blinked off Earth's radar. Not destroyed, abandoned. The ships drifted, lifeless, and so Earth won, not with guns, not with lasers, not with strategy, but with pain so raw it bypassed species, language, and ideology. The Purity Arc collapsed within hours. Its supporters refused to return home. Some begged to live on Earth. Others chose exile in the vacuum of space. The movement didn't die in war. It suffocated in understanding. Earth had shown the galaxy its ugliest soul, and the galaxy couldn't take it. 3 weeks later, Mark stood atop the rebuilt Imperial Tower on Zorthia Prime. The Emperor had returned, but as an equal, now called the first listener, not ruler. "Funny thing," Mark muttered, sipping cold coffee. "We won by being ourselves. Flawed, weird, bleeding, confused. Turns out honesty is the sharpest weapon in the universe." The director of Project Parody, now retired, stood beside him, grinning. "You didn't save Earth with humor. You saved it with truth dressed as a joke." Mark turned. "So, what now?" "Now," the director said. "Now we have a galaxy to teach how to laugh again, but not at the joke, at the pain." Mark smirked. "Dark." The director winked. "Human." Peace was ugly. Not in the way war left buildings burning or skies bruised, but in the quiet realization that nothing would ever be normal again. The galaxy wasn't just recovering from a battle. It was trying to understand Earth. And understanding Earth was like trying to explain sarcasm to a stone. In the months following the collapse of the Purity Arc, chaos became policy. Zorthia Prime transformed almost overnight. Where once stood monuments to conquest, now stood graffiti-covered theaters, absurdly designed public fountains, and statues of human emotions with QR codes that led to random memes. Imperial soldiers no longer marched. They danced flash mobs on weekends, rehearsing viral routines in once sacred war temples. Mark, now a reluctant icon, found himself promoted again. Title: Ambassador of Absurdity. Duties: none defined. Expectations: make the galaxy feel something. He sat at the Imperial Council round table, now oval because someone thought round was too fascist, with beings from over 80 species. Most were still trying to grasp what had happened. They understood war. They understood submission. But Earth had made them question everything. One delegate, a crystalline being from the planet Syrax, leaned forward and asked, "Why do humans mock your own suffering?" Mark looked up from his coffee, eyes tired but amused. "Because if we don't laugh at the pain, it owns us. Humor is how we mug trauma in a dark alley and walk away with its wallet." Silence. Then a slow clap from a gelatinous ambassador who had spent the last meeting watching sitcom reruns. Mark sighed. This was diplomacy now. Back on Earth, the consequences of victory rippled like aftershocks. The Black Vault broadcasts, though stopped, left scars. Entire therapy industries emerged overnight. Support groups formed for those affected by empathic dissonance, a condition where individuals became emotionally paralyzed by feeling too much too quickly. Ironically, humanity had created a new mental illness by weaponizing its oldest one. Governments tried to sweep it under the rug. They pushed tourism to Mars, encouraged alien cultural exchange programs, launched campaigns like Laugh Local, Think Galactic, and built interstellar streaming platforms that paid royalties in both credits and mental health vouchers. But under the surface, tension brewed. A growing faction on Earth called the Stoics began pushing back. They claimed Earth had gone too far, that in showing the galaxy their soul, they'd compromised it. They wore monochrome, avoided humor, and lobbied for Earth to cut all off-world entertainment exports. They called it a cultural quarantine. Mark heard about them through back channels. He watched clips of their speeches. He wasn't surprised, because deep down, he'd known this would happen. Mark found himself alone more often now. The parties, the accolades, the celebrations, they blurred together. He'd walk through Earth's new embassy on Zorthia, dodging alien fans asking for autographs on bananas. They thought it was Earth's currency. Then retreat to his room, close the door, and sit in the dark. He kept replaying the Black Vault's final video. The father, the shoes, the rawness still lingered. One night he received a call from the Emperor. No titles anymore, just a man trying to lead something he barely understood. "They want more," the Emperor said. "The other species, more Earth, more chaos, more meaning." Mark lit a cigarette. He wasn't a smoker, but these days, breathing anything felt like rebellion. "They think we have answers? They think your species has survived insanity, that you've turned it into culture." Mark exhaled slow. "We didn't survive it. We adapted to it, like cockroaches in a microwave." A pause. Then the Emperor asked, "Should we stop?" Mark didn't reply immediately. "No," he said finally. "But we have to change the rules." The new protocol was simple. Every Earth broadcast would now include a second track, human context. A digital filter that explained irony, trauma-laced humor, and cultural references before alien minds consumed the raw feed. It wasn't perfect. In fact, it was wildly flawed. But it worked just enough. Shows like Survivor Ohio, Funeral Roast Battles, and Crisis Kitchen became galactic favorites. Earth influencers taught empathy classes to planets who had never cried. But the Stoics pushed harder. They marched in silence through Manhattan, posted black and white propaganda across New Berlin, and hacked into Earth's most popular podcast to broadcast a single phrase. "You made the universe laugh. But at what cost?" Then the backlash hit. On a planet called Veraxis 6, a group of young aliens replicated a scene from an Earth comedy sketch where two friends faked their deaths to prank a third. They didn't understand it was fiction. 3 died, and the galaxy turned. News channels ran headlines, "Earth's humor kills again." Satire or sociopathy? Tears behind the laugh track. Mark was summoned to Zorthia's Senate. He expected a trial. What he found was a debate. One side, led by the Stoics, argued for Earth's cultural lockdown. The other, a mix of alien scholars, comedians, and accidental philosophers, argued that Earth had given the galaxy its first genuine identity crisis. And that was valuable. Mark stood when it was his turn. He didn't prepare a speech. He never did. He just walked to the center, looked out at the beings who once tried to exterminate his world, and said, "I get it. You wanted conquest, you wanted order. We gave you stand-up routines and trauma bonding. But don't pretend we corrupted you. We reminded you that feeling something, even pain, is better than feeling nothing." He paused. "You want to shut us down? Fine. You want to block our shows, ban our voices, silence our grief? Go ahead. But you'll lose more than Earth. You'll lose the best mistake you ever made." He walked off. The room stayed silent for a long time. Then the Jelly Ambassador clapped again. Earth remained open. But under watch, all humor was now considered emotional tech. It was regulated, licensed, taxed. Cultural engineers, once comedians and meme artists, now carried badges and underwent mental health screenings before releasing content to the stars. Mark stayed in the job. But he changed too. No more irony for irony's sake. No more reckless humor. Now every joke had to mean something. The galaxy hadn't known silence in years. Since Earth's arrival onto the interstellar stage, everything had become louder, faster, weirder. Laughter echoed in places once filled with solemn hymns. Emotional chaos had replaced centuries of sterile obedience. And yet, in the depths of that chaotic joy, something quieter, colder began to take shape. A backlash wrapped in calm, simmering resentment. It began with whispers, as all rebellions do. On fringe worlds that once celebrated Earth's culture, people began asking different questions. Not, "What's the joke?" but "What is the price of the joke?" Not, "How do we feel more?" but "What have we lost in the feeling?" They called themselves the Echoes, a name born from the belief that true culture was an echo of past wisdom, not noise from Earth's bleeding edge. The Echoes didn't wear uniforms or raise banners. They wore silence like armor. Where Earth's influence was loud and disruptive, they moved quietly, tactfully. Their first target wasn't military or political. It was symbolic. They hacked Earth's most popular off-world show, Last Man Laughing, a reality comedy series that pitted sentient beings in absurd scenarios with the only rule being, don't laugh. Laughing meant elimination. It had billions of viewers across 5 systems. During the season finale, right when the last 2 contestants were about to face off in an exploding pudding factory, every screen went black. Then, a single message appeared, across every broadcast node from Zorthia to Mars. Entertainment without soul is just noise. Emotion without direction is just manipulation. Echoes remember. Mark got the alert while in the middle of a press conference on Jovial Station 9, a newly converted entertainment hub orbiting the gas giant Drex. He didn't flinch. He was used to backlash, to threats, to scandals. But this one was different. It wasn't angry. It wasn't wild. It was precise. When he got back to his quarters, there were already 12 reports from Earth intelligence, 6 from Zorthian security, and a private encrypted message that just said, "They're inside the feed systems. They're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to replace us." For the next 2 weeks, every Earthborn cultural feed was under surveillance. But the Echoes didn't strike again right away. Instead, they rewrote things, slowly, subtly. One week, a beloved Earth cartoon suddenly ended its season with an episode about self-sacrifice and silent dignity. No jokes, no punchlines. Another week, a comedy film was mysteriously re-edited off-world into a tragic allegory about lost civilization. It wasn't censorship. It was cultural surgery. Mark convened with the director of Project Parody, now retired, but still an unofficial consultant. They met in a secure room beneath the Earth Embassy on Zorthia Prime, surrounded by neurodampeners and psychic blockers. "We're being diluted," Mark said. "They're taking our sharp edges and dulling them into platitudes." The director poured himself a drink. "And they're doing it with our own tools, using our delivery systems, our language. It's not a war. It's cultural counterinsurgency." Mark frowned. "So what do we do?" "You don't fight an echo," the director said. "You drown it." So Mark did what he did best. He went rogue. He bypassed regulations, ignored oversight, and launched an unsanctioned broadcast directly from the Vorkal's original War Command station, a place still loaded with ancient tech too outdated for echo interference. The program was simple. Mark, unfiltered. It wasn't funny. It wasn't comforting. It was real. Each episode, Mark spoke for an hour. No script, no censorship. He talked about Earth's worst days, about addiction, loneliness, war, about being laughed at while quietly dying inside. He told stories no one had the guts to tell. No laugh track, no graphics, just a man and a mic and the ugly beauty of the human condition. The first episode aired on 11 channels. By week 2, it was on 500. By month's end, it was the most watched program in the known galaxy. Because in a galaxy that had overdosed on punchlines, truth had become the new rebellion. But the echoes didn't stay silent. They hit back, fast and hard. One night, Mark returned to his apartment on Zorthia and found it trashed. Not by weapons, by symbolism. The walls were painted gray. Every piece of his Earth memorabilia was replaced with Zorthian art of solemn ancestors. His mirror had a phrase etched into it. "You taught us to laugh, now teach us to grieve." Then they took it further. They hijacked one of his broadcasts, not with a message, but with a demonstration. Live on air, a group of echoes performed a dramatized funeral of cultural dignity, showing actors dressed as Earth caricatures, clowns, influencers, drunk politicians, stumbling over a casket, while alien children watched in confusion. It was powerful and brutal. Mark didn't even try to shut it down. When the feed returned to him, he sat still for a long moment. Then he said, "They're not wrong." That sentence fractured the movement. Because if the chaos admitted fault, if Mark questioned the purity of Earth's culture, then even the believers were forced to pause. Earth had become a mirror the galaxy couldn't look away from. But mirrors reflect everything, including the cracks. A new wave of creatives emerged, not just humans, but hybrids, alien poets using Earth's beat rhythms, comedians from gas giant colonies mixing sarcasm with ritual chants, scriptwriters who combined satire with grief, and they called themselves The Balance. Their motto was simple: we laugh not to forget, but to remember without breaking. Mark didn't found them, he didn't lead them, but they all said the same thing. He gave us permission. Still, the battle wasn't over. The echoes escalated. They went after the archives, Earth's deepest cultural storage buried in the asteroid belt's vault stations. They launched cybernetic bugs into the vault's encryption system, not to delete the data, but to scramble context. Soon, ancient Earth content appeared spliced, broken, reinterpreted. A classic war movie now ended with a message about surrender as salvation. A timeless stand-up set was edited to turn self-deprecation into glorified victimhood. Even Earth didn't know what was real anymore, and the people began to fracture. Old Earth, New Earth, the Balance, the Stoics, the Echoes. They weren't killing each other, but they were splintering silently. And Mark, tired, older, watching his legacy mutate, finally decided to go home. He landed in Nevada, where it all started. The skies were quiet now. The stars held secrets he no longer needed to chase. He rented a small cabin, lived alone, and watched the world spin without him. Occasionally, a drone delivered fan letters, sometimes hate mail, usually both. But one night, the knock came. Not digital. Real. He opened the door to find a child, maybe 10 years old, green skin, 4 eyes, holding a drawing. It was crude, crayon, but unmistakable. It was a picture of Mark, standing on a stage. Below him were alien kids laughing, some crying. Above him the words, "You helped me feel okay about being weird." Mark knelt slowly. "What's your name?" The child beamed. "Zero." Mark smiled faintly. "You from Earth?" The kid nodded. "Half. My dad's from Andara. My mom's from Pittsburgh." Mark looked at the drawing again and realized that no rebellion, no censorship, no regulation would ever erase this one thing. The connection that only truth could make. The sky above Nevada was empty that night. No starships, no surveillance drones, no neon glow from orbiting satellites. Just cold wind across the sand, the smell of sagebrush, and silence. The kind of silence Mark hadn't heard in years, the kind that didn't feel threatening. Just full. He sat on his porch with a thermos of something between coffee and anti-insomnia syrup, a drink popular among burnt-out Earth diplomats and ex-galactic celebrities. The mug had a faded print. "I survived first contact and all I got was existential dread." Fitting. The kid, Kiro, had gone home after dinner, and 2 hours of Mark fumbling through old streaming clips on a dusty projector. Mark had shown him the early days, when Earth's culture was raw, hilarious, and tragic all at once. The memes that had started wars, the stand-up sets that became sermons, the unfiltered breakdowns that somehow healed entire species. Cairo had laughed, then cried, then laughed again, and before leaving he looked at Mark and said, "I don't want to be wise. I want to be real." Those words echoed louder than any message the Empire ever broadcast. Mark stared into the desert. His time was ending. Not from age, not from illness, but because his kind of relevance had an expiration date. The chaos he had birthed, the unfiltered flood of pain wrapped in humor, had given way to nuance, subtlety, layered culture that didn't need explosions of laughter or tears to feel profound. The balance had found its rhythm, and Earth was no longer a firestorm. It was a lighthouse, steady, still glowing but not screaming. He didn't resent it. He'd fought for this, bled for it. But now, he was the past, and the galaxy had moved on. Still, his story wasn't quite done. The next day, a message arrived via courier drone, a physical letter. Rare now, reserved for only the most personal of notes. The envelope was sealed with the insignia of the Unified Cultural Assembly, the council formed from Earth, Zorthia, and 6 other core systems that governed all interstellar media, philosophy, and art. Mark opened it, unfolded the thick parchment, and read, "You are hereby requested to deliver the closing speech at the Galactic Reconciliation Summit, to be held on the rebuilt ruins of Viraxis 6, the first planet where your message was both weapon and salvation. No script, no oversight, just your voice." At the bottom was a single line. One last truth before silence. He arrived on Viraxis 6 3 days later. What had once been a battlefield was now a garden. Not metaphorically, literally. The summit was held in a massive biodome, grown from native trees and Earth-engineered flora. Beneath the living canopy sat thousands of delegates, civilians, thinkers, and artists from across the stars. No guards, no armor, no threat, just people. The stage was a simple stone platform surrounded by growth. No lights, no microphone, just a circle. Mark stepped into it, looked around. No screens, no feeds, just eyes, alien, human, hybrid, waiting. He inhaled. Spoke. When I was a kid, he began, I didn't laugh much, not because I couldn't, but because I thought it made me look weak. That smiling was giving the world permission to take a swing at you. I used to watch comedy shows with my arms crossed, like I was too smart for joy. He paused. A rustle in the trees above. Then one day I saw this old clip. A man on stage, bombing, no one laughing, jokes falling flat. But he didn't stop. He kept going, kept sweating, until finally someone in the crowd snorted. Not a laugh. A snort. And the guy froze, smiled, and said, "You heard that? That's hope farting out of despair." Murmurs of laughter spread. Mark smiled faintly. I laughed so hard I cried. And I realized then, humor isn't about being strong. It's about being brave enough to feel when you know it might hurt more than it heals. He turned slowly, looking at the faces. Beings who once couldn't process sarcasm, now leaning into every syllable. We taught the galaxy how to laugh, and we taught ourselves to grieve. But the real miracle? We reminded each other we're not alone in the absurdity of survival. He pointed towards the dome. This place was built on the ashes of misunderstanding. The Purity Arc tried to erase our chaos. We responded with a mirror. And now look. No throne, no flags, just a garden. He stepped back. Maybe laughter won't save us. Maybe truth won't either. But connection? That's something no rebellion, no empire, no meme can undo. He took one last breath. And if nothing else, I'm glad we gave you that. He left the circle. Silence held for a moment longer than was comfortable, then applause, not thunderous, not wild, just honest. 3 weeks later, Mark was gone. Not dead, not missing, just disappeared. Some said he retired to one of Earth's moon colonies. Others claimed he was taken in by the balance to teach the next generation of cultural custodians. A few conspiracy nuts insisted he uploaded himself into the intergalactic net and now lived as a sentient stream of sarcastic commentary and dad jokes. But one thing everyone agreed on. He never came back. And maybe that was the point, because Earth didn't need him anymore. Not like it used to. The culture had matured, the galaxy had grown, and somewhere in a corner of the net, on a forgotten podcast from 10 years ago, his voice still echoes. We're all just walking paradoxes pretending we've figured it out. So if you're gonna fall, fall laughing. If you're gonna cry, cry loud. And if you're gonna tell a joke, make sure it's honest enough to hurt. Epilogue. Years passed. On Veraxis 6, children of every species attended storytelling schools built into the roots of the biodome. Each year, they'd gather under the old stage and take turns telling jokes, tales, confessions. And above the entrance to the storytelling grove, carved in stone, was a quote. "We didn't win the war. We changed the rules of the game." The signature was simple. But its echo would outlast empires.